right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. You guys are in the in-demand business analyst group. Either you're watching this in the group or you're watching this on YouTube. Today's topic is more about APIs. Last week, or maybe a few weeks ago, we covered all about APIs with Fakar Khan. He's the CEO of a development shop. We did a great job in helping you guys understand what APIs were. But then there was lots and lots and lots of follow-up questions about what is the BA role in APIs. So today, I'm going to attempt to cover that with you guys. Again, if you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to stop me. I'd rather answer your questions as they come up, versus waiting till the end, because I know myself, I'll forget questions that may come up if I wait towards the end. So again, welcome back. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation for this to help me make sure that I'm covering all the things I wanted to cover with you guys. So let me pull that up just 1 second. YouTube channel, yes. So let me pull that up. And that was me again. All right. So you guys, here's more about APIs, right? From a BA standpoint, this is the topic for today. So what are APIs? Let me start talking about that. If you guys haven't watched the video or the training from the last time where we had an in-depth definition of what APIs are. Fakar also went in and showed us how APIs work from a technical standpoint, which I think from a BA standpoint, you guys don't need to worry about at all, right? I want you guys to think about APIs as just have a firm understanding of what they are, right? And I'll cover in just a little bit where BAs need to be involved and what your responsibility is when talking about APIs or using APIs on your projects. So just as a beginning, API stands for Application Programming Interface. And what that really means is a way for systems to communicate and interact with one another, right? It allows us to build systems easier without having to rebuild everything, right? APIs are maybe systems or services that may exist. Most of our APIs are free. There are lots of paid services as well. And the goal of using an API on your project may be simply to reduce the programming effort or time frame that's needed. So if you were to build everything from scratch, you can imagine how long your IT projects or systems may take. But if you use APIs or systems or services that already exist in the world, where companies have spent time and energy, lots of time and energy in building systems and services that already exist, that makes our process and our lives a little bit easier. So that's the whole reason why we use APIs, right? And some of the examples of most common used APIs, as you guys may have noticed when you're trying to log into a new system or service, that we are making things available where you guys can use your Facebook account or your Gmail, Google account to log into a new service. And using this feature allows you guys to not have to create 50 million accounts for each service that you're using. This makes it easier on you to not have to remember all those usernames and passwords. And what we're doing on the back end is we're connecting with Facebook, for example, or Google, for example, to authenticate your credentials and your login for that system or service. Okay. When you sign up for let's say, for example, you've signed up for a subscription program and they want to verify your text messages. Most often, the company that's developing that has used a third-party company to help do those text message verifications. Very often you'll find that, we'll use third-party companies or services to do that versus having our developers create the text message verification or email verification from scratch, okay? Twilio is an example that a company that I use in many of my projects when text message or email verifications are required. And the way that we use that service is through an API, okay? When you're trying to look up something on Google Maps, like, your nearest restaurant, you are actually using an API to put in an address and to figure out how far your destination may be from where you are. I love this one, pay with PayPal, right? This allows me to buy clothes for my kids. It allows me to buy books online or whatever or even dishes or whatever the case may be, right? And I don't want to have to sign up with, for example, Macy's.com or Aeropostale or American Eagle, wherever my kids want these things from, right? It allows me to log into my PayPal account and pay through my PayPal account versus having to create all these credentials with each of the different merchandisers that are available out there, where I would have to physically put in my credit card information, right? PayPal already has my credit card information. They know who I am. So when I want to pay with PayPal, it's a simple login to my account, one account versus so many others, and they have my credit card on file. So that makes that process a lot easier for me. Okay, and then weather apps are another example of APIs. Okay, so now what do APIs have to do with business analyst, right? Or a Scrum Master? So here what I've done, you guys as business analysts, Scrum Masters, or even product owners, you're responsible for documenting the what and the end result. You're not concerned about how to make things happen, right? From a technical standpoint, right? We work with our business owners or stakeholders to gather the requirements, and we determine what we need to deliver to our stakeholders versus, how it's going to happen. So I've given you guys examples of requirements. So if you're in the agile environment, most likely you're writing user stories. If you're in the waterfall environment, then you're definitely writing requirements like this. And again, I just used an example just to give you guys an understanding, right? So now forget everything that we talked about APIs. I want you to focus on what the business requirements are for this slide, and we'll use this slide for the rest of our presentation to help you understand how and what business analysts are responsible for, right? And to help deliver this message a little bit better. So, and the requirements, right, are as a mentor, I want to sign up and register with my cell phone number so that my login access can be restricted to my personal cell phone. And again, in the Agile environment, we write our acceptance criteria so that way our developers and our QA folks know exactly what to expect when this is coded. So here's my acceptance criteria. Given that I'm ready to sign up as a user, when I've provided my phone number, then I should receive a text message on my cell phone to verify my usage, right? That's our requirement, right? That's our user story for how we want or what we want to accomplish with this requirement. And if you're in the waterfall, this is how you'll be writing your requirements. The system shall allow the user to register using a personal cell phone number. Once a phone number has been entered into the system, the end user shall receive text message for verification. Both of these requirements are doing the same thing. The way that they're written is just based on the different environment that we may be in. So basically, what we're more concerned about is what we need to deliver to the business, right? Versus how it's going to happen. So once you have this requirement captured completely, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what happens next, right? We give our requirements to our developers. Developers will review the requirements. They will determine if an API exists that will meet the requirements. We discuss that API recommendation as a team. And if it's approved that we're going to use this, then we use the API to deliver that requirement. If it's not approved for whatever reason, right? There may be many reasons why we don't want to use APIs, but let's say we figure out that we as a company or as a team don't want to use the particular APIs that were recommended by our team, then we have our programmers code those things, which will take longer. We're more, it will take longer to code, it will take longer to test, it's more error prone and etc. Right? So that's what generally happens. I'll pause here to see if you guys have any questions before I move forward. Okay, perfect. So what kind of APIs exist? There are APIs. Yeah.
Hello?
Do we have a question?
Yes, sorry. So just back one slide. I wanted to confirm if it is yes, no, yes, exactly. So is it always does it always happen that APIs will always be recommended? I mean, is it not that the developers will just go ahead if it's a regular API like Gmail, Twitter, Facebook, won't they just go ahead to implement it? Will there always be a discussion to
Yes.
approve or reject an API?
Yes, we don't work in silos, especially in Agile. Everything is very much a team approach. In Waterfall, I could see where sometimes we may move forward. So the discussions that happen if you're working on an Agile team, everything is discussed as a team. We move forward as a team. In Waterfall, if the use of APIs is going to happen, maybe that discussion may be with the technical leads and not generally too much with the stakeholders, right? Or the business owners. But generally for in the agile environment, it is a very much a team approach where, things are discussed like this. And because we'll need to test these APIs anyway, so it's a team discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Another question.
Mhm.
As a BA, do we do the market research to see what APIs are available?
You guys can, but generally that really is not your role, right? You guys will be more concerned about, especially if you're in the agile environment, you'll be very busy working with stakeholders to do backlog grooming, to make sure that your user stories are fully fleshed out and ready for the next sprint. If you're in the waterfall, you'll be more concerned about writing all your requirements out before you hand them over to your developers, right? And once they're with the developers, your developers, if they have questions, you guys may have meetings and such. But generally, those are just for clarifications. And we may even talk about using APIs in those meetings after the requirements have been delivered. But generally, doing research and things like that, it's generally developers are the ones that are responsible for that, because they are the responsible for meeting the business needs on how to accomplish something. But can you do research? For sure you can.
Okay, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens next? We determine as a team if we're going to use an API. Your developers will always recommend using APIs, because remember, it makes their life a lot easier, right? They don't have to go reinvent the wheel if they don't have to. So they will come back to you guys. It'll be a discussion. We'll agree and we'll move forward. And then what kind of APIs exist? As I said, there's lots of open source APIs. And if you're using an open source API, that code is usually available online on the sites for those APIs. If you're using a paid API, as I mentioned, Twilio is one example of an API that we're using for text message and email verifications. Or even, let's say if you're signed up for a subscription, I'm signed up for HelloFresh, which is a weekly subscription. They deliver fresh produce to me and give me recipes to cook. So every time I'm getting an email from HelloFresh, they're probably using an API to push those emails at a certain point where I need to receive them. So for example, Wednesday is a cutoff date where I need to go in and select what I want for the following week. So I get an email every Wednesday saying, hey, Sarbjeet, you need to let us know what you want. Otherwise, we'll just pick something for you, right? So even email verification, text message verification, anytime you're receiving text messages for a service, anytime you're receiving automated emails, right? They're most likely using a third-party email system, and they're working with them through, pushing a trigger point. So for example, Wednesday at 3 p.m., for example, is when they need to send to me an email that says, hey, Sarbjeet, you need to pick what you want for the following week. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yes, it does, Sarbjeet.
Clear as mud, I'm sure. So again, there are paid APIs. These are services that you guys will probably have to sign up for. So this will require the company organization to sign up for a service. Developers from both company, yours and the API owners, will need to connect on requirements. So as I mentioned with Twilio, there may be trigger points that activate when a call needs to be made so that email could be sent to me. So those are things that you guys will have to figure out, right? Or your developers will have to figure out, but that's generally how it works. Okay, I get lots of questions around APIs and that are like, how will I know that it will work? How can I know more? So my first thing, and I try to put this in bold, and I don't know if you guys can see the difference, but this is in bold. The first thing you need to do is to work with your developers and or your programmers that are working on the project. As a business analyst, as a Scrum Master, as a product owner, your developers are your best advocate. They're your best friends if you want to be successful. So rely on them and work with them and make sure that you understand. And if you have any questions, they're there to help clarify those questions for you. Now, don't go talking to them like every day, they'll start to ignore you, but make sure you have meaningful questions for them and they're there to help and support you. So you can ask your developers tons of questions like ask how and when the API calls need to be made, right? In the example that I used for Twilio and my HelloFresh example, right? There's probably requirements that, send the subscriber an email notification to pick their meals for the next week at 3 p.m. on Wednesdays. So that's a business requirement. I will meet that using the API with a service from Twilio. Does that make sense, you guys? Again, from your standpoint, you are more concerned about what needs to happen versus how it's going to happen. So your requirements will be more focused on sending an email to the customer at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, right? That's a business requirement. And your developers will, if we're using an API or Twilio in this example, will work with some email company. If we're using a third-party API, then they will write calls where that email needs to be sent out at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. We have a question. Why will team reject available API and prefer to build one? There could be many reasons. I don't know. There could be many reasons why a team may reject using APIs. I don't know the specifics, right? Because every project is different. There could be, many different things why teams may reject using APIs. And when teams do reject using APIs, they have to be okay with adding cost to the project, right? And adding time to the project. So that's a trade-off. Okay, work with your developers to know what is the exception if APIs, what is expected if APIs don't work, how will we know? How will we know downtimes if you're using like a third-party tool like Twilio? I'm sure all companies, all IT systems have downtimes for upgrades and such. So find out all of these things, right? And again, it's a discussion that you have with your team and everybody will be aware of what's happening. Okay, so the other bullet points I have is get on a call with your developers and developers who offer the API so everybody's on the same page. So often I hear, yeah, it could be security. Security could be one of the reasons, but I'm not 100% sure. There could be many reasons. So oftentimes I hear, BAs or, people that are working as business analysts, and they're like, well, we're going to use an API, but my developers need X and I don't know how to get them this thing. So the best thing you can do is get on a call with your developer, reach out to the company that is going to be offering the API. Most likely this is going to be a paid service. Try to get in touch with that company and get their developers on the call and make sure everybody is talking the same language. You guys are using the same lingo and everybody is clear. Generally, we do lots of testing, validation, verification when we're using APIs, right? We're not going to just use some third-party system and not test to make sure it works. So all of that is going to happen, right, as part of you working and delivering a successful project. And then you yourself as a BA, Scrum Master, product owner, whatever your role is, you can also participate in API testing. Okay. And these are questions that we had from the last time, more FAQs about APIs. Is it a BA's job to know which API to use? Absolutely not. As a BA, how much information do I need to know about APIs? Only that APIs exist for many things. And if your project requires to use third-party applications or systems, your developers will utilize them. And that's all, right? What different types of information can we get through APIs? There's so many different APIs out there. There's so many different services and systems out there. Again, it all goes back to the business need and what you're trying to deliver for your business, right? And then how do I get those API keys to use? Open source API keys will be available on the product website. Private APIs can be retrieved after a relationship is established, which means, it's a paid service. And once you guys pay for the service, those API keys will be available to you. Okay. What other questions do you guys have? Did this help clear up lots of, confusion and anxiety around having and using APIs?
Yes, for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, guys, that's all I prepared for you guys. Again, we do lots of training on the weekends, usually Saturdays or Sundays. I'm always looking for topics, right? Because I want to spend time and energy on delivering what you guys want to know more about, right? So please, in the comments, whether you're watching this on Facebook or you're watching this on YouTube, please let me know what other topics you guys are interested in, and I'm more than happy to do these sessions for you guys.
I have a question, Sarjeet.
Okay.
So suppose whatever requirement you have related to API, so do we need to create a particular user story, or it's just one line?
So your user stories and your requirements will happen first, right? Before APIs come into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to determine what your business needs are and what you need to deliver, right? As part of your, sprint planning or, backlog grooming. And once you have that identified, only then can developers suggest APIs, right? Because they need to know what you're trying to do before they can go out and do research on APIs and understand if they exist.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. You may want to share your experience. Okay, so these are topics that for other training sessions, please, if you guys can put them in the comments in the group, right, where this training is, that way it's easier for me to remember and go back to versus putting them in the chat, because this chat will be closed when I end the session. So anything that you guys can, any other topics you may have, put them in the comments area, please. And with that, thank you so much for joining. I always love the interaction that we have with these sessions. I'm happy to do more sessions as, based on what you guys want to learn more about. Let me know. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you guys again shortly.